of the very first things that we do at Mass, because we invite anyone and everyone to come to Mass, whether they are Catholic or not. And at the beginning of Mass, we let them know how blessed we are by their presence, that they came in the doors to see us. At communion, even if someone is not Catholic or is not prepared to receive communion, what our priests say is, we want you to come forward. If you're not going to receive communion, put your hand over your heart, because we want to give you a blessing. So that's a very basic thing that we do in the liturgies. In terms of our relationship with people outside of the parish boundaries itself, one of the things that we do in November, the fourth Thursday in November in the United States is our holiday of Thanksgiving. And so what we do on the day before Thanksgiving is we host a dinner and a boutique for the people in the community who have some needs. So they come, and we have about 700 to 800 parish volunteers who are part of preparing the meals, serving them. So we have served anywhere from 900 community members to almost 1,400 community members at that Thanksgiving dinner. And then as part of that, they also go through the boutique, where we've had parishioners donate clothing, toiletries, shoes, blankets, sleeping bags, and people can go through the boutique and take those as gifts from us for the holiday. So those are little ways in which we do that. But other things that we do on a more regular basis, we have teams of volunteers that 3 times a month go and prepare meals and serve those meals at homeless shelters. We have, and they get to know the people who are in those shelters. So I will receive thank you cards from the shelter residents saying, thank you so much, St. Monica, for coming and being with us. So I think part of it is simply honoring their presence, because so much of the time someone, especially who is homeless, feels ignored. And while they do have the needs of money and food, and those are very real needs, they have the more basic need of being acknowledged as another human being. Does that answer your question at all? And I'm so sorry.
Like a support group.
And then we're talking about, and then we also have our bereavement groups and our group for the separated and divorced. And with those, I help to oversee the bereavement group, and that is where I see some really beautiful miracles happening. One of the things I have people call me and say, I'm not Catholic, can I still be in your group? And I said, absolutely, you are welcome to be in our group. We have a Christian framework, so you need to be comfortable with the fact that we're going to be talking about those things. But as long as you are comfortable with that, you can come. So we've had people from the Jewish tradition come through our group. We've had people with no spiritual background at all come through the bereavement group. And I see that as a very strong step. That's where people are at a very difficult point in their life. And if the church can be a loving, holding place for them, so they can say that they're angry. There's one man who, he came in, he lost his wife, she had been very, very ill, and he was so angry at God, you could just feel it, and the sound filled the room when he spoke. But the group facilitators and the group, we were able to hold that and hear it and honor the fact that, yes, you miss your wife terribly, and we don't know why God took her from you. And he's like, I'm never coming to church again, and all of that. And that went on for a while. But one of the beautiful things that I see now is he's one of our hospitality ministers who greets people when they come into church. He donates money, he donates goods to the church. He's serving at one of our homeless shelters. So because we let him be who he was, he now is able to connect back with God. So that's just one example, and I see that happening many, many times over. So it's a matter of communicating to people that yes, we do have to honor the fact that we are a Catholic community, and we're not going to be ashamed of anything that we espouse. That's part of who we are. But we can embrace you and love you within that. Come and be who you are with us. Is that a little bit more helpful?
Yes, for a part of it, because for me the question is for moral situation particularly, about the person who consider themselves as outside of the community,
Yes.
because they cannot go inside the community, because they feel that the church judges them, and particularly the Christians not to be welcome, because I think for this person, for part of them, they think that they are believers.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a revendication to be a part of the church.
Mm-hmm.
And it is for them, usually it's not sufficient to say, oh, you're welcome,
Mm-hmm.
but they want to be a member, they want to access to the communion, etc. etc. So for me the question is, outside the question to be welcome, to participate, dinners, etc. How do you, what is your reflection, and how you think about the welcoming, but the welcoming inside the community? How?
Within the community.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is also a very big focus of what we have. You're right. It goes beyond just the words that we say, because words are only that. It has to be backed up by action. On a very concrete level, we have hospitality ministers that are here every Sunday that would be right at the elevator as you came up the elevator from the parking lot. They would be welcoming you. Hello, welcome to St. Monica. We're glad you're here, all the way into the building. And then would have the mass. But at the activities that we do themselves, the presentations, the groups, at those places we reiterate the welcome, and we also make sure that we interact with each person individually. We find out what they're interested in. As part of almost all of the ministries, at least in the department that I work in, we have a hospitality team. And it's their job not just to say you're welcome here, it's their job to follow up and call the person and say, we're really glad you came to the speech on Friday. We have other events that we'd like you to come to. And so what we do is we make sure that people know that as a parishioner, it's their responsibility to reach out to the people that may feel alienated or that may feel lonely. And again, the way that we're able to do that through our support groups, we train our bereavement ministers, we train our divorce-separated ministers, our Stephen ministers, that their job is to be the embrace of God, that it's not to judge, that if someone has a question about theology or can I do this or do that, we'll go and we'll find a priest and we'll sit down and we'll talk together about that. But it's not our job to judge, it's our job to love. And that is a sentiment that gets permeated through the parish. So I don't know.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, okay, good.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
A question following this is, how do you train all these people doing this hospitality ministry? How do you train them? Are they in the United States naturally gifted to do that? Or do you need some training, as we probably would need in Europe?
No, I wish we were, but no, what we do is we have we have two gentlemen that are the leaders of our hospitality minister, Dan Schwala and Joe Christian. And what they do several times a year is they host a hospitality training seminar. And so they go through and they give people concrete guidelines of this is what we need you to do where, this is these are things that you should know about the parish, so that when someone says to you, I'm here from Chicago and I really would like to get involved with Habitat for Humanity, our hospitality ministers are going to know that we have a Habitat for Humanity ministry, and more than likely they're going to know at least one other person who's from Chicago, and they can make that connection. So they go through a day-long training, and they have ministers that have done it before that help teach them, and they usually work in pairs, so it's not just one person, they're working together.
How many do you have in the parish?
Golly, how many hospitality ministers? We probably have 100.
100.
Yeah, 150.
There's how many at each mass?
Usually about 10.
10
at each
10
mass.
to 12
10 at
at
each mass.
mass.
And the thing is that beyond that one day of training,
It's amazing.
hospitality ministry is one of the easiest things to do in terms of the actual activities, because it's simply interacting with other people. And it's also very, very fun. I have ministers that come through and do other activities with me that might get a little, tired, and then they move to hospitality ministry, and it allows them to interact with a lot of people. The other thing that we do as part of the training within our ministries is we also invite people to think about some time when they walked into a new place and they felt welcomed. And we ask them to remember, what was that like? Who was in the room? What did someone do? What was the room like? How did you feel? Did it make you want to come back? So we have them imagine that, and they come up with all of these great ideas and the things that we would think of. And then I have them say, okay, now close your eyes and think about a time you walked into a room as a new person and you felt utterly ignored. What did people do or not do? How did they interact with you? And by doing that kind of exercise, it really brings to mind, the very simple things that we can do. So we do have to train people to do it, but they can do it and they love it. They do love it. It means a lot.
Listening skills, I think, are really important in that welcoming sense. Is really to stop and acknowledge and honor by listening.
That's another question. This 5-year plan, vision plan, with whom you make it? You have a parish council, or who is this?
Well, let Mike answer that.
Yeah, so our system of governance, you know that word governance, decision-making in the parish. We have a parish council.
Who is
about
elected?
20. Well, first of all, we have 6 ministry councils. And these ministry councils oversee an area of parish life. So worship and liturgy ministry council, adult formation ministry council. And each one of those ministry councils selects 2 people to serve on the parish council. And then Monsignor has 4 at-large nominations. So there's about 20 on the parish council. And the ministry councils come up with proposals and ideas for the parish. They present them to the parish council, and the parish council recommends them to the pastor. And we also have a finance council. We have a schools advisory board. Those are our main ways we make decisions. And then we have a large staff and an administrative team for more operational decisions, where the councils make strategic decisions. The difference, operational versus strategic.
We had 105 people here Saturday. They were our leadership of our schools. Tom is the president of both of our Catholic schools here. We have an elementary school and high school, and Tom is the president of both of those schools, so he can talk to you about that if you have any interest in Catholic education here in the United States. But we had 105 people here on Saturday talking about the things they thought were our strengths, the things they thought were our weaknesses, and what they were looking for. So it's not just our little council gathered together, it's trying to get people who are out there in our community to also help us to form what we hope will be a plan for our next few years. I don't have much of a future. I'm at the end, but the church, our church has lots of good hope and new designs.
Just to give you a sense of the schools, and in America, most strong Catholic parishes have an elementary school. So usually just kindergarten through 8th grade, and then the secondary education, high school, there are often archdiocesan schools, or there are private religious schools run by religious sisters or brothers, or lay board now. But it's kind of unusual to still have a parish high school because, as you can imagine, it's quite an operation, quite challenging. So we're really blessed. We're a thriving parish that decided over 80 years ago they're going to do all of it. And so it really fits well with the parish mission statement, which is to form loving disciples who transform the world. And how are you going to transform the world any better than with the next generation? So we put a lot of energy into forming young people for tomorrow with a great faith formation and an education. And so we try to align with the work that our parish does. Our parish has a very strong unofficial motto of all are welcome. And so you'll see that, you've probably heard about that from other leaders. The schools take that on as well. So while in some places of the world, I know certainly in Latin America and some of America, some Catholic private schools look increasingly for the elite or for maybe the disadvantaged. They're usually one extreme or the other. Our parish really does a very good job compared to most Catholic schools globally at really trying to do the low SES, the high ESES, and the middle. So we work at that. That's very challenging, just like it's very challenging when the church comes out with a statement of all are welcome, and then you're coming to maybe a Christmas liturgy, and they're welcoming some people that are divorced, or welcoming some other disenfranchised groups from the church. And so as a school, we try to do that and try to educate and form a wide variety of people. About 20% of our population of the two schools is non-Catholic, and so some of them participate. They participate in everything that we do, all the liturgies. Sometimes some of our great leaders are sometimes even leaders from a different faith tradition. Often through their involvement in one of the schools, there is some catechesis that happens that leads them to sacramental preparation. We see kids in both the elementary school and the high school coming from different traditions that then receive sacraments. We see kids that love the music because there's such a strong music ministry in this parish. That has transferred over, especially to our high school, and we were able to be inspired by that and develop that resource. And so sometimes we'll have students coming from another geographic region that get really excited about the music liturgy, stay involved in our church long after they graduate because of what they've learned being part of this faith community. So it's a little different than most American churches' approach to education. It's a little more involved, which can be complicated sometimes for those of us on staff. Sharing only one block of space is a real challenge, but we think that our students' and parishioners' experiences are richer because of that cross cultivation and collaboration.